Let's get to the main event. And, you know, it is a fascinating one again, because if Israel Adesanya wants to be and goes down as the greatest middleweight of all time, he's got to beat Alex Pereira at some point, right? We've seen this number trickle down here in the last 2 weeks. You could have gotten Pereira as high as plus $1.30, plus $1.25. Now at DraftKings, it stands here on a Tuesday, Lou, it's plus $1.15. What do you make of this? You never really see a short price like this on the quote-unquote greatest middleweight of all time in Israel Adesanya. What do you make of this matchup once again?
Well, I'm really looking forward to it, first of all. And in the first matchup, we had a similar total, 4.5. It was shaded a little to the over. Now it's shaded a little to the under. And in this matchup now, we're catching Israel that opened minus 150 or 60. Now he's down to 135. In the first matchup, he opened 200, closed 210. So what all that means to me is that we're lucky enough to have some body of work. And as I assess this fight, Israel Adesanya won 3.5 of 4.5 rounds in the first fight. But what needed to happen was Pereira needed to finish him, and he got it done. And so now we move forward into this fight. And the only way that I can look at it is somewhat clinical. Yes, Pereira is a dynamic striker, profuse power, a guy that I don't believe has any business fighting at 185, but he can make the weight. Now, all that being said, it's Adesanya that's the more deft mixed martial artist. There was some wrestling in the first fight. There was some top control by Adesanya. I don't put it past his gym to maybe introduce some looks like that. I believe Adesanya is capable of wrestling. I believe this fight comes down to who's the better mixed martial artist as opposed to who's the better kickboxer. And to me, when I assess everything, I'm looking at Adesanya, who in the first fight you had to pay 2-1 for. Now you can get him minus $1.35. I think I'll just watch this line, see how low it goes. But I'm interested in Adesanya in this fight. I believe that he has what it takes to find himself either with a finish or a decision. I don't know which way, but I do like Adesanya.
You know, styles make fights. I don't know if this is a good stylistic matchup for Israel Adesanya. He wins the majority of the rounds, but he doesn't win the fights, whether it's in the UFC or outside against Alex Pereira. Will it be different this time? Can he grapple his way to a 5-round win?
I thought he was going to do it in the rematch, or if in the first fight, and he didn't. And when he did, Pereira got up, and the dude still carries that power, that nuke of a left hand all the way in the 5 rounds. So for me, I was early on Adesanya, but the more I look into it, it's like this could just be the one guy that is the kryptonite that you just can't get over, and it's still at plus money. Pereira hasn't really shown that he's got some issues wrestling or standing striking. So I think you got to put faith in that he's going to retain the title, at least today on Tuesday.
Yeah, I've been torn on this one, but I always get back to styles making fights, and certain guys or women like Holly Holm was kind of looked at as the Ronda Rousey stopper. It's exactly what she did. Pereira's kind of brought in as the Israel Adesanya stopper. That's what he's kind of done. I do got to get your thoughts here, Dan, on the main event here. When you look at Izzy, if you want to be the greatest middleweight of all time, you got to beat the guy that really in any organization you haven't been able to beat as of yet. That's Alex Pereira. What do you make of it? Because the numbers have come down on the champion, Pereira, who was still the betting underdog when this fight opened.
Yeah, I'm still going to go with Israel Adesanya. I'm one of those people who, when I've seen that many rounds of them fighting together and it seemed like the fighter had a clear advantage, yeah, the knockout bums me out, and yeah, I'm worried about it again. Who wouldn't be worried about it again? It's happened 2 times in a row if you count the kickboxing match too. But the fact of the matter is Izzy seemed to be winning that fight pretty easily. He was working in all the different angles and stuff like that. I think we see enough of that too. Maybe a little clinch work to keep it safer at the end.
Let's start off right there in the main event with Alex Pereira here against Israel Adesanya. And we just threw up some of the data that you've compiled on this fight here. Look, you've got a lot of data between these two guys, not just the bigger sample of what they've done in their entire careers. Do you throw out some of the data that is not directly correlated to their fights, whether it was in the UFC or not? Or do you just look at when these two guys have fought, let me just take and compile that data?
Well, in this case, we're looking at UFC only fight performance. And so each guy has their career to date. Now, Pereira is a little bit fresher. He's newer in the UFC, so fight minutes, not as much to go on. And you often see this, like some of his stats look abnormally good. Like his power head accuracy is ridiculous at 48%. Average should be somewhere in the upper 20s. So on one hand, Adesanya is good. Pereira looks amazing on paper, but sample size means a lot. Adesanya has done that for 5-round fights with the best of the best for a long period of time. He's been in, 10 title fights or something crazy at this point. So Pereira is still coming off. He only has 4 appearances. And so is that number as believable? Probably not. So we'll see some regression to the mean there, but it still points out why he has been successful. He has been successful because, one, he hits hard, but he is extremely accurate and efficient in finding his target. And Adesanya normally has been very hard to hit, and that's what makes him so dangerous. He's rangy. In this case, he's not going to be as rangy, doesn't have much of an advantage. But Adesanya can fight going backwards. He can make you reach for those shots and then make you pay for it with his counter strikes. And that's what we see in the data. That's what he's good at. And when he's wielding that strategy, he's winning rounds. And he won 3 out of 5 rounds in that last fight against Pereira. And he even used ground control, which we have not seen historically that he uses. He actually did more takedown attempts in that fight than his entire UFC career to date. So is that a new weapon that he's working on? Is he realizing that maybe Pereira is too strong on the feet and he's got to switch it up? So strategy is going to be interesting in this rematch, but just based on pure numbers, I am still leaning towards Adesanya. And I found that a little bit surprising, but he does have the experience.
You know, Reed, one of the thing in the data that you've compiled here, and I want to bring it back up, is this distance knockdown difference, or chin, if you will, right? And it's basically a wash here at 100%. And I think the common theory is that Adesanya's chin doesn't hold up as well as Pereira's, but really it's kind of a wash by your metrics, correct?
Yeah, that's because that stoppage, he never went down. It's like that old Raging Bull movie. You didn't knock me down. He may have beat him up pretty bad against the fence, and the referee definitely stopped it, but he didn't knock him down. So Adesanya has not been officially dropped. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have a TKO stoppage or get knocked out on the ground, but that metric is a very specific one that is tracked by the UFC stat keepers. And so both of these guys have scored knockdowns. They actually, Adesanya has technically scored them at a slightly higher rate on a per strike landed basis. But in terms of the chin, they're both clean. Neither one of them has been dropped in competition in the UFC.